Nations fall, gods die, and Earth's mightiest heroes face their ultimate challenge. Today, on the inaugural new episode of Fake Nerd Book Club, Fake Nerd Podcast Book Club. What's up, guys? I'm Ron Iopolis. I'm joined with Sparks Witty, as always.
Yes, I am also here.
I'm with Ben Magnet, as always.
I am also here.
And not the maker himself, we got Brandon T. McClure joining us, as always.
I guess I'll also say I am also here.
You are 616, Brandon. You are not Ultimate Version.
The
Brandon.
board. The board.
Oh, chairman of the board. Yes. We are here, guys, because we're going to have an ultimate good time on today's Fake Nerd Book Club. We are talking about Jonathan Hickman's 2011, not magnum opus, because everything that the dude writes is incredible. Ultimates Comic Ultimates, one of my least favorite titles for a comic book, but a pretty good comic book nonetheless.
It's a pretty bad title.
The Ultimates comics are really silly.
Well, this was when the big relaunch stuff happened.
Yep.
And so everything went under Ultimate Comics, then Thing. And I'm like, yeah, but the Ultimates.
Yeah. The Ultimates is a dope name, but it's also the name of your universe.
I was going to ask, because when I was searching for this book,
Yeah.
I put in the Ultimates, found a bunch of stuff like by Mark Millar, Al Ewing, great
Brian
writers.
Hare.
I'm like,
Yeah.
but
He
not
draws a
the,
lot.
but not the one I needed. So then I was like, I wonder. I was like, Ultimate Comics, the Ultimates. First thing that popped up, I'm like, what the shit?
I sent you a good picture.
Officially, this volume is called Ultimate Comics, The Ultimates by Jonathan Hickman, Volume 1.
Yeah, they really need to get all as detailed as possible because there's a lot of Ultimate Comics. So Jonathan Hickman did write this book, but it's also drawn by Esad Ribic. We got colors by Dean White and letters by VC Clayton Cowles. And before I ask you what you guys think about this book, I want to know your history with the Ultimate Universe because I know how much mother effing 616 y'all consume because I've done this podcast with you for 7 years. But the Ultimate Universe is not something we talk about all the time, mostly because it's been dead. So I know Sparks is happy about this conversation. But before I get into Mr. Ultimate Comics himself, I want to know about you two, Ben and Brandon. Tell me about your knowledge or reading of the Ultimate Comics.
Ben, why don't you go first? Because I'm pretty sure yours is the most limited.
Yeah, almost non-existent, essentially.
Cool.
My knowledge of the Ultimate books is simmered down to reading what we did, because I know Sparks has picked the Ultimate Spider-Man for some of the things. Like for some of the book clubs, we have read some Ultimate Spider-Man. But
That's true.
Prior to that, many eons ago, I was in possession of 3 Ultimate Spider-Man books that I don't remember how I got, but I don't remember exactly what issues they were. I want to say like maybe 10, 11, 13, or 11, 12, 13, something like that. It just, all I remember was it involved the Green Goblin. And
Yes.
I saw the big hulking monster Green Goblin in a cloak, and like his speech bubbles were all jagged and weird and creepy, and me being a 6th grader at the time, I was reading this, and like when Peter Parker said, "Oh, don't give me that crap," I was like, "Ooh, scandalous," because I'm a kid. I read kids comics, or I read kids comics, and seeing crap in a book was like, "Oh wow, like I better not let my parents see," and that's it. Even like,
oh, you were done. You weren't done. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say the only other thing I know about the Ultimate Universe is Miles Morales came from the Ultimate Universe, and then the Galactus that we know destroyed it in Cataclysm. And I've been wanting to find the hard cut.
Galactus did not destroy the Ultimate Universe. Secret Wars destroyed the Ultimate Universe. Galactus was the event that immediately preceded it, though.
Okay, because I wanted to read the Cataclysm with the Ultimates fighting like big honking Galactus, not the Galactus Swarm.
Right. Because there was the Galactus.
They combined, they fused.
There was the Galactus Swarm, and then 616 Galactus showed up. Anyway, I have a long history with the Ultimate Universe, but I miss the middle part of it. So I read Ultimate X-Men pretty religiously through Barnes and Noble. I would not Barnes and Noble at the time, it was Borders. I would always I would get Ultimate X-Men from there, and I would read that all the time. And this is also related to what Sparks is going to say, because I would then, after we met and he got into the Ultimate Universe, I would borrow his novels and go through them one by one. So Ultimate Fantastic Four, Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men, the Ultimates, even Ultimate Iron Man. I read all of those for a long time, and then I just dropped off. And then, so I missed everything before I missed everything not just before, but for like a couple of years before Ultimatum, and then I missed everything after Ultimatum up to so I have like the Galactus Swarm. I think is the last like Ultimate event I read, and then I read the stuff that immediately preceded Secret Wars, so Ultimate FF, Ultimate Spider-Man, and Ultimate X-Men. I think those were the only 3 at the time.
Pretty sure.
Yeah, I don't remember too well, but I was working at the comic book store at the time, and I was just reading them off the rack. So I love the Ultimate Universe. Honestly, it's at times very problematic, but really fun at the same time.
Yeah.
Brandon's gap is because Brandon moved away and thus could not borrow the book from me anymore as easily physically, and that's the only reason that Brandon has.
Brandon, when you say the middle gap, do you mean this section or post this?
Pre and post, because that would have been the end of 2008.
Yeah.
So just a bit before Miles comes in.
Yeah.
And then for a while after.
Yeah, because 2011, like this Ultimates, which is basically like the Avengers of the Ultimates run. This is like the big flagstone relaunch book where this was basically like the third attempt to make the Ultimate Universe as big as it was, because it had the first really big get go, and then it kind of petered out, and then they had a second relaunch which it didn't work as well, and then they got Hickman, which really set the world on fire with this book. So yeah,
and every book like that was when the Ultimate Universe was like had its most attention on, hey, try this, and like not everything connected with people, but it was because immediately preceding this, and it's relevant to our conversation, is when Peter Parker dies and Miles Morales starts to show up. He's not fully Spider-Man yet. You get a reference to it in this comic that we're going to talk about, where Spider-Woman is looking at the picture of someone in the costume. For context, Ben, that is Miles. Miles is showing up in a Spider-Man costume, and Peter is dead.
Yeah.
So it's pissing her off. Yeah,
like who's
for that context? I was very confused.
Yeah, this is exactly right after, and we'll get into like some other things that are connected to that, but like the Ultimate Universe kind of all kind of dwindled down around the death of Peter Parker, and then bloomed into this out of it.
Yeah.
It was they took a shot, and not everything landed for everybody. I think in particular the X-Men stuff that they did at this time didn't work for everybody.
I find the X-Men stuff particularly weak, to be honest.
Which is really funny, because in hindsight, like there's a lot of kind of Krakoa-esque ideas that happen in the stretch of X-Men all the way up until the end.
Yeah.
They're not executed very well, but I'm like, I see how the radicalness of what we've talked about, what they would do with Krakoa, the seeds of that idea are in the Ultimate X-Men.
100%. And honestly, like, again, Hickman being involved in so much stuff, like, y'all read this comic. Hickman is so good at doing what he does, but man, that guy has like a thing that he does, and it's like these massive scopes, and these like the world and the maker and all these verbs and adjectives, and it's very like Destiny like, but he makes it work, and he makes it like, not to be super reductive, but like he is like a Christopher Nolan of the comic book. He's able to make these giant things and make them feel so impressive, but also feel like so like real and lived in.
That's a good example.
And what I love about the Ultimate Comics is I've never been a hardcore Ultimates guy, but I've dabbled since its beginning. Specifically during this run in 2011, that's when I moved to California. The New 52 was about to start, like Marvel Now. So all of this is when I was coming into comics. So this was like my big launch into the Ultimates. And again, it's with Hickman. So like it's what a way to start. And I think this first volume is really great. And what's so fun about the Ultimate Comics is like it's allowed to have weight and have stakes, and like it feels real and it feels like cataclysmic, because like all the stuff really could be the end of these characters, and like that's what the Ultimate Universe is for.
I'll just real quick answer the initial question, which is, what is my history? I read it all, baby. I own it all, baby. Warts and all, because this was the first comic stuff that I really started collecting in trade. So I have the entire thing all the way up to the end in trade form and hardcover, and I love it. Some of my favorite things in comics is in the Ultimate Universe.
I mean,
some of the worst things I've read in comics is also in the Ultimate Universe. But you know, it's pretty wonderful taken as a whole. I think it's an experiment that worked really well, and I'm so grateful it's there, because frankly, like so much of modern comic culture doesn't exist the way it is now without the Ultimate Universe, partially because of how very clearly, even here, you see the influence that resonated into the MCU. Even though the MCU had already started at this point.
100%.
You can see those same trappings of like what was so core about this modernizing of the Marvel Universe that was brought over. And they felt bold. And we're going to get into how this book specifically, I think, is really representative of some of the better aspects of what the freedom of the Ultimate Universe allowed.
Yeah.
I want to. I'm sorry, Sparks, if you have more, I'll let you go.
Yeah, just a real quick thing. Like, I think that like it's so nice that like I'm excited about this Ultimate stuff like coming back around, that we're having a conversation about it.
That's why I chose this book club, because Ultimate Invasion is now out. The Ultimate Comics, the Ultimate Universe is fully back. The maker is back in full form, and it is Hickman doing this a decade later. So like I was really jazzed to revisit this stuff.
And I think that's really cool. And I assume that. And so I'm really glad that you picked this, because I haven't read this since the first time.
Same.
And going back to it, I was like, man, there really is some stuff. Like, obviously, like you will hear me say it time and time again, like Bendis's whole run on Spider-Man is fantastic. There's rarely a bit that I don't think is good. And usually if it is, it's a thing of the time, or something where Bendis looks back and he says, yeah, that was a misstep. But overall, like, that Spider-Man comic is so gosh dang strong, and it was the core. It's so interesting because it was very clearly the heart of the Ultimate Universe the whole way through.
Yep.
Everything moved around Spider-Man, because the Spider-Man comic was the one that was consistently driving the universe. So many bigger things would happen in the other books, because you have like X-Men doing things all over the world, the Ultimates, Fantastic Four, but Spider-Man was the heart of the universe.
He always showed up. Yeah, he always showed up in all the big stuff, because like he is the guy.
One of the things that I think the Ultimate Universe kind of gets a bad rap for is because in its early days, specifically, it was very sexually charged, to be kind of this kind of like
wanted to be edgy, wanted to be grown up,
want to be edgy and grown up. But like you had things like Wanda and Pietro sleeping together, and Logan was lusting after Jean Grey, who was a teenager at the time. Yeah. And then in Ultimates Volume 1, when the Hulk goes on a rampage, he's yelling "Hulk so horny," like that. And that's really I understand this there, and like just want to also say that like I understand that was there, but like those elements of the universe started to be shaved away over time. And you can even see, even early, like where I was, when you get to all the Galactus Swarm saga, like you can start seeing them kind of go away from the more sexually charged things.
Just real quick, like in particular, the Ultimates in their introduction suffered, I think, the most from it, because they were so, even compared to a more modern and slightly more mature take on the Marvel characters, the Ultimates felt like it had to be the most mature.
Yeah.
So they kind of pushed that envelope even further than the other titles did. I'm pretty sure, though, I'd have to look at it again, that the writer who created the Wanda Pietro thing admitted that they were reading Game of Thrones at the time, and were inspired by the Lannisters, and that's the main reason why they pushed that into the comic, because they thought that would be a cool take. Ultimately, not so great. But
it's not the same as being in a fantasy universe.
No, but for like, again, for every like kind of sour note, I think there's at least 10 wonderful things that come out of the Ultimate Universe that at least created a sense of, if nothing else, the success of the Ultimate Comic Universe, and it was successful for quite a while, I think did initiate an idea like things do need to change a little more in the main comics. Like, stagnation is bad.
Yeah, but they also, this being, again, the comic we're talking about takes place in 2011. Before this, like, we had Ultimatum happen, which is like legitimately one of the worst Marvel comics to ever come out, and that is like Magneto like reverses the polarity of the world, and he like floods New York and kills millions of people, and like Blob like he cannibalizes, eats the Wasp. Like the worst things happen. Like just this awful comic, and like it destroyed not just like the world of the Ultimate Comics, but like the reputation, and like nobody wanted to read these comics, so they got so filthy, and like they become like Saw movies for no good reason other than this is the edgy universe. So like it took a huge ass relaunch with Jonathan Hickman and all these other people, but like let's go back to what this was supposed to be. It is an alternate universe of the characters we love with different takes that's similar to what you know. And what I love about this comic is there's so much of the 616 transformed in new ways, and that's what I love about the multiverse. You know, comics has been a multiverse thing since its inception. Like people are over it now in the movies and TV shows. That's because like they're not used to it. That's kind of like an everyday thing in comic book world, but like, you know, they make it so important. It's a multiverse saga as opposed to an issue of a comic. Doesn't have to be super important. This is just an ultimate world where one of your superheroes went bad, and what happens when he's the smartest person in the world and he goes bad? Nick Fury can't handle it. And I love this. This feels like, man, we just watched Secret Invasion, right? Talk about a Nick Fury who's in over his head. What do you do when Reed Richards is your enemy? That's insane. And I think this comic looks great. I think it sounds great. I think the colors are great. I think everything about it is like I said, I feel the weight of the world. The villains are incredibly interesting. The hyperbolic time chamber that is the city, 1,000 years for 5 minutes of real time. Give me a break, dude. That is like the coolest concept of the planet. I love it. I think it is such an ingenious idea. It's so good that the X-Men have used it for multiple times over multiple decades. Literally, the Children of the Vault is something Hickman did in his most recent X-Men run again. So it's like, good ideas, man. They just they're eternal. It's great. Yeah. I love it.
I remember the first time I read the reveal of Reed is the Maker, and being astonished, but also like brilliant. Just brilliant. This is so the choice. This is so the right call to make. This character has been on a path that this makes, like, it didn't come out of nowhere. Like these kinds of things that when things like this tend to happen in the main comics, there's a good chance that a lot of times it kind of comes out of nowhere, or it's only had like 20 issues of lead in. But the Reed that becomes the Maker in the Ultimate Universe, I can't stress to you enough, Ben, that Reed has been on this path since day frickin' one.
Yep.
Like he was gonna be a bad guy. Like you might not have known that was gonna be it, but this has been in the DNA of who he was, that he was pretty selfish and pretty shitty to a degree. Like it was just gonna take one thing to push him in that direction. Turned out that one thing was Sue rejecting him for good.
Yeah.
I remember reading Fantastic Four, Ultimate Fantastic Four, which for my money is a boring ass comic book back in the old days. But like reading that, reading this Reed Richards, I was like, this dude is the worst. Like there is no way this is a good person, and then I'm supposed to think he is a good person.
And what's so great about this is if this were the 616, they would just like, oh, let's just turn him into a good guy. Instead of continue the character trajectory that you were building, they didn't revert him, they leaned into it.
Every previous Ultimates comic event, Ben, before this one, every previous Ultimate comic story that is not their first one is them cleaning up a mess Reed Richards started. Every single one.
And Nick Fury even mentions it. He's like, because like we don't realize this is Reed Richards until like nearly the end of the comic, which is awesome, by the way, because this is a long form storytelling book that Hickman's doing. But like Nick Fury is like, you know what? Like we could have done something about this a long time ago, and we didn't do anything because he was a hero. He was such a shitbag, but he was a hero, and we didn't really look at him for who he really was. And this is kind of my fault.
To his credit, that's Steve.
Steve
sorry. Who's saying that's right. Fury,
no,
and he's saying because Steve.
That's right.
I do want to give this context to Ben. Steve is in this place right now because Steve blames himself for Peter dying.
Yes.
And that's why he's out in the desert. And
Captain America is
himself out of being Captain America is because he holds himself personally responsible for Peter being dead.
Oh no, I got that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understood that part because there was a line in I think like issue 2 that Captain America is just out in the desert because he blamed himself for Peter's death.
Yeah. So because of that, also him like now reflecting on everything they've done and him being like, yeah, we didn't, Reed was screwing up, and rather than like helping him or being a support system, we just gave him shit for causing a mess we had to clean up.
Yeah.
Every time.
Now, in this book, there's a reference to Reed having died prior to this book, which is kind of why it's a big surprise to everyone because everyone thought he was dead. And he has this thing where it's like, you have to really mangle my body to kill me. When was that?
I don't remember.
Just before this?
No, it had been a while. The Fantastic Four stuff. I'm pretty sure the Fantastic Four stuff where Reed was gone was even pre-Ultimatum. And like that's why the Fantastic Four weren't really a part of Ultimatum or around, if I'm remembering correctly.
So the 2009-2011 phase, there wasn't a Fantastic Four comic. So it was that initial run. So he's been gone for years.
Yeah. So I forget what happened. I think it's the ultimate version of Thanos that they have an encounter with, and Reed ultimately seems to die in that encounter. So he's just been off the table for a while, but it is ultimately that Reed kind of chooses not to come back. Until he comes back this way.
Because he learns that his mutation is far more elaborate than the 616 Reed. Like he is much more of an eldritch horror. I remember specifically Ultimate FF. I'll never forget this comic. It's the same comic where Galactopus makes his debut. When we see Reed and he having, he has been captured by the Fantastic Four, and he's just there, and he's just got limbs coming out of all over his body. He's just stretched out all over, doing all these things at multitasking. And I remember seeing that for the first time. I was like, holy shit, this dude is nuts.
Also, let it never be forgotten that the Marvel Zombies universe exists because of this Reed Richards.
Yes,
it does.
Got it. In Ultimate Fallout, Reed is revealed to have survived his defeat and is shown trapped in the negative zone. So he's been chilling in the negative zone, and then somehow he got out.
Okay.
Yep.
Very cool. Ultimate Universe is kind of screwed up.
Yeah. So y'all, just curious. Do you have a favorite character from this book? Because we have Thor. This is a different Thor, which I really like. We have a Tony Stark. I like that this Tony Stark's a little more hard edge. He still sells weapons, and this is the book. It took years for him to become the Tony Stark that we know from the 616. Where like, oh, I sold a nuclear bomb to my enemies in my own group, and I didn't realize that. And they were like, well, Tony, we didn't expect you to actually be there. Why'd you do? Why'd you show up and try to save the world, bro? I think that's really great. Like Tony Stark's morals are always something that I love. Now in 616, 60 years after he's premiered, he's basically a good guy. But like, I like a Tony Stark with a little bit of a hard edge, and in the Ultimate Universe, he very much still has that.
It's Thor for me.
Yeah, it's tough for it not to be Thor for me because, like, even outside of this comic, I still remember who all these characters are. And, like, while Steve is being remorseful, like, even Steve is morally compromised in the Ultimate version. Like, they're all kind of shitty people to some degree, and the only exception really is Thor.
You think this A stands for France?
Because Thor starts the story in the Ultimate Universe, and it's referenced here in this one, where he doesn't have his powers and he seems to just be a mortal man, but he has a suit that's giving him the replication of the powers of Thor.
The Children of Tomorrow with the Maker, they find out about Asgard because they have Thor, and they're reading him, and they're like, yo, you have some power from beyond your own body, and they trace it to Yggdrasil on Asgard. And they go to Asgard and they destroy Asgard, removing the power from all the gods. And this happens in like the first 2 issues of the book. Like the power of the Children of Tomorrow and the Maker, it is so awesome in like the truest sense of the word. Like they are so powerful. They are so beyond mortal beings. Like they might as well be gods themselves.
So Sparks is right. Like part of it is that Thor is. I still remember Thor from reading the Ultimates 1 and 2 back in the old days. And I remember specifically Ultimates 2, which I believe it's Ultimates 2, where Thor opens the book and Fury's been trying to get a hold of him, and he walks into Fury's office, and Fury's like, "Where the hell have you been?" And Thor's like, "Oh, just fighting the World Snake." And Fury's like, "I can't tell if you're lying," because at that point, no one believed that he was actually the God of Thunder. They were still playing with that idea that he was just a dude with powers. This is really like Thor, and Thor's really good in this one. I really like how he's doing. I really like the destruction of Asgard sequence. I think that's really fun. I really like how Thor is really struggling with being.
I was gonna say I don't think it's gonna work, but he becomes Valhalla because he's the last Asgardian.
You just held up one of the funniest pages in the entire Ultimate comic line.
Yeah, when there's the fart joke in the middle of a really emotional scene.
Yes.
I have grave news.
I just farted.
It's the last panel of Thor just like sullen and lost, and all of these Viking god ghosts laughing at this fart joke.
I really, and he gets Stormbreaker back because he doesn't start this book with Stormbreaker. He has something that looks more like Mjolnir, but he gets Stormbreaker, or I think it's Ultimate Mjolnir in the Ultimate Universe. But he gets it from Tony. But he had that hammer in the beginning. He lost it in between this, I assume.
I don't remember.
That's why Tony's like, I'm a collector. Like he's been holding on.
Oh, that's right. He literally says right here, like I'm a collector. Yeah, that's true. You're right. Man,
so he basically had Ultimate Mjolnir taken from Thor.
Yeah.
I cannot praise how Esad Ribic has only gotten better and better over the years. Like this is the same team that 4 years later would do Secret Wars, which I think is the best Marvel event ever made. Esad Ribic has such a beautiful painterly feel to his work that is honestly like he is like you immediately recognize his work, specifically because of his faces. He has a lot of like big O faces. This is one of my favorite 2 pages in the whole book. It's the Braddocks. Oh, real quick, I wrote this down. I love this. Excalibur. They're not the multi-dimensional saviors of the universe in 616. They're the European super soldier program in the Ultimate Universe. And Jamie Braddock, who is like the worst of the Braddocks, the most evil of the Braddocks, is Captain Britain. So him just like being a big shit to everyone is really fun. Like it's just a big role reversal. I love all that stuff.
I know it. Oh, go ahead, Ben. You've been wanting to say something for a bit.
First of all, Thor's my MVP, and he's also my favorite. I absolutely love him. But can I please read this bit from the end of issue 2?
Please.
Go for it.
The day the world tree died, and what was divine became ordinary. When, like rain, dead gods fell from the sky. It was the last day of myth. It was the last day of legend. It was the day the children of tomorrow killed all the gods, and they were gone forever.
It's good shit.
That freaking got me.
Now, I really like that you spotlight that, Ben, because like you can write that exact same paragraph in an event in the main Marvel continuity, and you'll be like, yeah.
Wait till that.
But the advantage of the Ultimate Universe is like, no, we mean it.
They're gone.
Asgard will never be restored in the Ultimate Universe, and I think that's awesome. I love that. Like that's why like I'm really happy with this one, because I do think it is such a good example of like the weight of all this, the weight of how many people die and how much of Europe is wiped out by this city is like, oh, this isn't just going to be undone. They are going to feel this. The whole world will react to this.
I just want to show you guys that Thor hit someone with Mjolnir so hard that their legs explode. And I just think that's great. Tech Thor, very cool.
You were gonna bring up Rubik's O face, which
Esad Ribic.
It's these wide eyes that you're gonna see on so many people throughout the book.
Yeah,
just like the
every his Thor run with Jason Aaron's incredible. The Eternals run with Kieran Gillen's great, but his faces are sometimes very, very funny.
That is not just an O face. That's the oh shit.
I really like Esad Ribic's art. I keep forgetting how much of his artwork I've read, because I just read all of Thor, and I read this, and I read Secret Wars, and I'm like, this every single time. I think he blows me away.
Yeah. I forgot that Falcon shows up in here. I love it. That him being a stealth operative is so dope. And then Reed Richards knew he was there the entire time. He's like, dude, I don't care. What are you gonna do? I want you to tell these people.
No, he's like, I want you. It's so good. I love the exchange, because he says like, oh, you think that I'm just gonna like buy into this? That this is gonna make me understand what a monster you've become. And he's like, you sound like them, Sam. Don't do that. Like, you're a scientist. You're not some soldier. You're not some brawler. Like, you're coming here. You understand these things, which is a big change from the Ultimate Universe. Sam's more of a scientist here, and so he's like, look, I want you to just come and go, and I want you to see what this place is, because you will understand inevitability, which is also why I really like Reed Richards as a villain in this one, because this has always been who he is. He has always seen scientific progression as an undeniable and ultimate good, regardless of cost. That has always been who he is inside this world. So to have the Maker be that person who's like, this is better for everybody. You don't get that yet. You will. It's better for everybody.
I love Reed Richards, because in the 616, like these two are the same characters, but in the 616, like he's a glass full type of guy, and the Maker is a glass empty type of guy. Like Reed Richards is like one universe away from becoming the world's worst villain, right? But like we're lucky we got 616 version, right? That's why the Council of Reeds exists. They're all awful. Our Reeds the best.
Well, but the Maker is now has been for a while, not anymore, because I know the Ultimate Universe is back, but like for a while was a prominent villain within 616, which really caused some problems.
Absolutely.
And like it's always nice though, because he is like a good villain, because he is a person who's so convinced he's right. You can see how he's very clearly wrong, but he is a person who believes 100% what he is doing is the right thing to do for everybody, in a grand sense, for everybody. And he's not trying to push his own personal bullshit.
Yeah. I got one of my favorite, again, there's a lot of great two-page great scenes. It's when Thor puts Modi in the tree. and he's talking to Loki about it. And Loki's like, I thought it was cruel when Father did that to me, putting him in the tree to send him to another universe, basically. But it was a gift, life. You understand what you've given him? This room exists outside of the world. Regardless of what happens here today, he will live. And then this is like he does this with Wolverine and Nightcrawler and House of X, Powers of 10 too, which I love. But it's Thor and Loki talking. So, do you have any regrets, Loki? Brother, I regret everything.
Yeah.
To the very end. And I'm like, oh, brothers! It's so good. And again, because it's the Ultimate Universe, like these characters can go out at any time, and like it feels impactful. It's just it's a magnificent, feels like an event comic, but it's just an Avengers comic.
Yeah, I think this is one of the. First off, I really like Jonathan Hickman. I'm grateful that Ryan keeps bringing Jonathan Hickman books. I've read a lot already, just on my own, but I don't think I would have been as hard into Hickman if it wasn't for Ryan.
He's written a lot. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I really like the way he writes to these characters. They're always really, there's a Shakespearean writing to him without necessarily being operatic. That's a really good way to put it. Like even people that normal people feel grander than life and bigger in scale. And I really like that. Real quickly though, I thought Hawkeye was Wonder Man for like a solid minute.
Oh sure.
Yeah, he's got a different look there.
Oh, yeah. Because I wasn't caught up on the Black Widow lore. Clearly, that's not Natasha. This is Monica Chang. That's Black Widow, the second Black Widow, who is Nick Fury's ex-wife, and that's why Nick Fury and the Black Widow have a child at the end of this book. I'm like, that's not Natasha.
Yeah, Natasha's dead.
She died.
Okay. Once again, I was confused. I'm like, why does Natasha have black hair? And then, of course, I got to the end of it. I was like, why is she sleeping with Fury? What's going on here?
I love the page of all the spirits when they say you are Valhalla Thor.
It's so good.
So excellent.
Beautiful stuff.
Yeah, I like kind of reminded me of the Ghost Army from Lord of the Rings.
A little bit.
100%. Oh,
yeah. Thor, when he tells Tony, like, I want you to speak of this day, saying, it wasn't in madness, it wasn't in grief, I went for vengeance.
Yeah.
And when he disappears out, and Tony wanting to go and Fury just being like, sure, yeah, you want to go? You go, but you won't be here for planning what to do.
Yeah.
You won't be here for how to respond, because you're going to be in the city.
And you're going to die.
Be dead,
you're going to die.
Like him.
Yeah. Nick Fury's so good. Like, Nick Fury,
he's so good when he's got shit like this.
Yes.
His whole schema of like when they're going in and Iron Man's like, Thor, more importantly than anything, you're back here because like you can warp us out if this is going south. And Fury's like, if it's going south, I don't give a shit. We're gonna die. We're gonna kill him. And then like it's just so bad. And it's like Nick, pull the plug.
I love hard ass Nick Fury, and like Ultimate Nick Fury is really cool. And then Nick Fury now in the modern age is he's certainly a character who's cool, but he is not the Nick Fury of old. He definitely doesn't feel like Sam Jackson Nick Fury. But like reading this again, I'm like, man, like Nick Fury is so badass. I love him. I think all of Iron Man suits look great. Who else we got? Yeah, all the characters really. Like there's a little bit of Spider-Woman. I'm probably going to continue to read this just because like 30 issues isn't super hard. But like I'm super invested in this version of the Ultimate Universe, and like I know Hickman doesn't write the entire run of it, right. But like I love this first volume. So if I can read 10 more issues of this, I'll be totally happy.
I do really like this is the first time, if for context, in the Ultimate Universe where we see Nick Fury just like fully thrown on his back foot.
I don't know what to do.
Yeah, at the end of the first issue, like I have no idea. I don't know where to go from here.
Again, Hickman loves a good like data page or just like single white page, and it's like Nick Fury, I don't know what to do. The next page, the Republic is burning.
Yeah,
just in a white page, and I'm like, yo, that I feel it. I
really do like the discussion where he goes to the Oval Office and he's talking with them, and they're like, yeah, the president's going to want to know like how we're going to respond, and he's like, honestly, right now we've been given a moment to catch our breath and regroup. We need to do it. The wrong move to do right now is to do something just so we look like we're doing something.
I'm being honest with you. Like, I don't know how to respond. They have overwhelming force that we cannot comprehend. Like, this is hard for me to be honest with you, man.
And the coldness of but hey, as while all this other stuff is happening, it does look like Detroit's going to make a comeback. Oh, why? Because Deutschland got swallowed up by the city. So, now our German friends are out of the car business.
That's big Oppenheimer energy right there.
Yeah.
God.
Silver linings, baby.
Yeah. It's been so fun to revisit this. Like, I'm really excited to visit Ultimate Invasion to see what the maker's up to, and with Jonathan Hickman rewriting him back.
I also really like, because we're talking about Fury, the very end of where this book is that like, okay, now throw all the old rules out, throw out the game plans that we usually do, go nuts. What are our options? And well, our options is a team that involves Jean Grey, Firestar, the Guardian, and these new twins who are popping up.
Yeah, the Zorn twins.
Who are running a refuge for
the
mutants.
Mutant. Oh yeah, all this again. Like I don't think that most of the Ultimate X-Men stuff is super great, but like the world building of new TN and forming with the Zorn twins and like.
Well, the best thing that happens in this universe is like it goes hard on the promise of like this world hates mutants.
Yeah.
Now because of Ultimatum.
Yeah.
So they've hunted them. But this isn't just like, the Sentinel program or anything. Like the world as a group now hates mutants. Like that, and it doesn't really change. It never really gets better before the Ultimate Universe is over. They don't really go back to thinking differently about. They hate them. They never really come back around.
Real quickly, Ben, for context, back in the beginning, the X-Men were considered heroes. They were beloved for the most part by the public, and that was like the big change for Ultimate X-Men. Like 616 Ultimate. 616 X-Men and mutants hated. Ultimates 1610 mutants beloved because they look at them in the same vein as superheroes like the Ultimates. And then that changed because of Ultimatum.
Yep. Yeah. Do you guys have any final thoughts on this wonderful Ultimate comic?
I do love the design of the sentience that is at the middle of the city.
The city, I love it.
Sitting as this head over the Maker's chair.
Love it.
It's just
there's
cryptic.
There's good reason why when House of X Powers 10 came out and Professor X would never take his helmet off, people are like, "What's going on, Hickman? You love an evil dude in a helmet. Are you doing this?" And he's like, "Nah, it's just Charles being silly."
I think it's because of Hickman and definitely the Maker. And because I know Charles Xavier is cool to a point, but it's because of Hickman, especially now seeing the Maker in full villain form, essentially. That every time I see a comic book character where where everything is covered from like the nose up and it's just their mouth, I'm like, you a bad guy. You gotta be doing some bad shit.
You know good.
Yeah,
I remember when there was a lot of speculation around Hoxpox when we saw Xavier in that helmet, and everyone's kind of like, is it actually Moira? Like I remember there was, because he was kind of effeminate, people were like, is that actually Moira?
Yeah.
There's a lot of
like
talk about
that we see him with, and he's like, "Rise, my X-Men."
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's all this like talk about who's this guy going to be? It's very Maker energy. Like, what do we do? And it just turns out to just be Charles being Charles.
Yep. I just like the helmet.
He just likes to pose that way because he's got legs that work now.
Yeah, man. That's in Phantom X's clone body, which a lot of people don't know.
Yeah. There's one other thing two things I wanted to talk about really quick before we're done that I made a mental note of. Because of me not knowing much about the Ultimate comic books, I was confused quite a bit in certain parts. I wasn't confused to the point where like, oh, this book is terrible. It was, I could somewhat piece together what was going on, but I mean, through Hickman's writing and the way because like we said earlier, or Hickman is Shakespearean. He's operatic. He loves a spectacle, and he likes things to mean things. Like the line about the gods falling, those last day of myth. I'm like, dude, that's actually really freaking cool and really poetic. And then there's other stuff. I'm like, the frack are you saying, my guy? Like they're talking about all these other events. Oh god, there was one that I thought I was going to talk about, but I completely forgot. But it was just a bunch of other events that led to this. I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like I had no idea what set Reed Richards on this path. I just knew that Reed Richards was bad. Sure. But the other note I want to say is seeing his face. And then when he takes the helmet off and you see his elongated head, oof. I'm like, gross.
I needed to grow my brain. I will agree with you, Ben, because like, I think this comic, while being a sequel book to 10 years of continuity or whatever, like I think it is a good jumping on point. But I do agree that like if you don't know Reed Richards is a villain, like he just shows up and he is a villain, you just kind of have to roll with that. So like I will give that.
So I'll say that like this was not meant to be necessarily this volume, the jump on point, rather the preceding event story, Ultimate Fallout. Which follows it's the fallout of Peter Parker's death. That comic goes through spotlighting all our major characters and heroes where they are in the aftermath of that, and teases up this story, teases up what the X-Men are doing, which at the same time this is happening is what those twin brothers story is about. That is happening at the same time. And if you're reading that book, and then obviously we talked to you about the Peter Parker Miles outfit thing, like that's all happening at the same time. So Fallout is supposed to like launch you in like, hey, Peter Parker just died. If you wanted to read that book, you read that book, and now here's where everyone's at. Here we go into the new phase of the Ultimate Universe. So that is kind of like just for more for audience than for you, Ben. Like that is the conjoined like launch point that this is meant to be.
Cool. But even though that now you now have context thanks to you guys in doing the show, what I will say, the book was very enjoyable, and it was very. And when I say this in a good way, not in a bad way, because I did enjoy that book when I was reading it. This is giving me a lot of New 52 Earth 2 vibes, where you have a bunch of heroes.
Yeah, I see that exactly.
Oh, yes, I'm not. Yay. And because you have a lot of heroes, you have a lot of characters who like they're strong, they know what they're doing, and yet they are facing down this most impossible force. When we see how the children of tomorrow grow and how they get rid of their names and how they just become something like their status 5 or the 5th nurse or the 4th
teacher,
nurse.
knife.
Yeah, like knife 1 or something. It's just like, okay, that's creepy. Once again, it's like, oh, this is probably later. It's like, okay, I see how Hickman did this for Hoxpox with the Nimrod stuff. But seeing that and then seeing them fight, and yes, you get a quick like oh shit moment with Thor, but then everything they launch, like when Nick has his fleet of helicarriers, they launch a nuke at them, they do all this stuff, and they're like, okay, cool, we got them, and then it's just like not even scratched, not even touched. It is the most we are effed scenario ever.
Oh my God, yeah, I love that scene because he's like launch a nuke. And then it doesn't work, and he's just like, "Fire everything!" It's like,
and everyone's like, "Nick, we gotta go."
Yeah. To pull another pop culture reference, it's the guy from the Iron Giant who grabs the radio and yells, "Launch the missile now!" at the giant because he thinks nothing can stop him. Yeah. But the thing that I also love is when the city just stops, and Reed Richards, the maker, is just like, "Don't touch me, I won't touch you. Just let me have this." Yes. Yeah, I know. And yeah, he's like, yeah, I know I killed millions of people, but you saw what I could do. So I'm offering a truce for now.
I've not read any further than this, but I firmly believe that Reed Richards just left out the word "yet" when he said, if you don't touch me, I won't touch you.
Yet.
But eventually I'm coming for you.
That is Brian.
That mother effer is just like, you know, he's something.
Well,
is Sue and Ben together?
Yes, I'll hint at something that is I do know comes later, which is that what I think is clear in this book, and I think is cool. The maker's not telling the children what to do. Right? You get that. Like it's this the city has its own sentience and decision making, and the maker is respected. He can give advice, but they are not listening to him. He is welcome there as their maker, but he is not the person who is making the calls. They are operating on their own guidelines because even in his own eyes, they are perfect creations, and he himself is imperfect by comparison.
Yeah,
he's all about it. Yeah,
he has this. I love that it's been thousands and thousands of years for the maker, and he's just like, yeah, that's Thor.
Yeah,
I'll never forget
Thor.
Yeah.
Which is also me acknowledging that like the maker and the children's desires will not always be aligned.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, so I want to touch on Ben's analogy of Earth 2. There was for the New 52, Earth 2 was, I don't remember who wrote it. I know Tom Taylor come on board eventually, but I don't remember who wrote it in the beginning. James Robinson maybe. That sounds right. I've always thought Earth 2 kind of had a similar trajectory as the Ultimate Comics, where it was this kind of like idea to do things differently and really drastically reimagine these JSA characters and really move. But then there was Earth 2 Society, then what was that stupid thing they did during Convergence, and then they had like another like. What happened to Ultimates within decades happened to Earth 2 in like 5 years. And I always thought that was interesting.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because no, are you going to continue with your Earth 2 analogy?
No, I'm done with that one.
Okay, and just to piggyback off what Ryan was asking me about with Sue and Ben are together, and part of what happens at this exact same time, and I just want to touch on it because it's truly one of my favorite character beats about the Maker that you should always keep in mind, is that it's the last good thing he ever does. He is the Maker, and what happens is you're seeing a story of Ben and Sue, and stuff is happening, and all of a sudden, Ben Grimm's rock stuff disappears, and he becomes a normal person again. And it's because the Maker finally figured out to fix him, and he said, I always promised I'd fix you. And they don't know why it happened. The Maker's not there when it happens. It's later that they find out that it was Reed. And that Reed said, like, I finally figured it out after all the knowledge I gained, and I fixed you because I promised I always would. And he also has like a begrudgingly, like before the end of the Ultimate Universe, like take care of Sue kind of moment with him, which is like the last bit of good that's left in that person.
Yeah.
Which I always find really touching because like they allowed, again, it's the Ultimate Universe, so you're allowed to let Ben be human again with like this different power set that he gets and be with Sue. And it's all at like Reed, like, I finally did it. I finally made it better for you.
That is kind of nice.
But I'm also crazy.
Yeah.
Well, didn't Reed help Sue deliver her baby? Because there's this whole thing where Miles Morhamis was like threatening them as like any universe where Ben and Sue get together is a world that's going to be destroyed, and any universe where Reed and Sue get together is
that's the Galactus event right before the Secret Wars occur. When that happens. Cataclysm.
Yeah, and because I remember reading that in Ultimate FF, and Sue, I think that was like the last thing Reed ever did in the Ultimate Universe is help Sue deliver a child. It wasn't his.
Yeah. Reed is convinced at that moment that they are all essentially doomed, and he's like, "This is one last nice thing I can do for people I cared about."
Doomed.
That is more or less the bit where he's like, you know, I think it's right around then, like you as a reader know, but like that Ben finds out that it was Reed who fixed him. That it wasn't just random.
One of the things I really like about Hickman, and kind of the last thing I'll say about this book is, and we've touched on it a few times during this conversation, but just to kind of put a capper on it, is that he likes to play with a lot of the same toys. And I think that it's interesting that he does it in a way where it never feels repetitive and uninteresting. I always feel electrified when he gets to play with the tools that he loves to play with. And I don't feel that way about a lot of other writers.
I think it's two things in particular, which is like you can look at things like this and other works that Hickman does as rough drafts for things that he does later. But while they might be rough drafts or he thought of different ideas about how to pivot out of the thing he was doing at the time, he's always adhering to character first. Yes. And because the characters are different, that allows for it to, like, the mechanics and grand ideas can be pretty similar when you line them up next to each other, but the characters who are going through it are different, and he always puts character first.
There's one character that we forgot to talk about, and it's Jarvis too. William. And I think it's really funny because William gets hired and he's like, "Hey, my name's William. Don't call me Jarvis." Like, the people told me you were looking for a new Jarvis. Well, that settles that, doesn't it? If I was looking for a William, I would have hired a William, wouldn't I? And I'm like, damn it, Tony.
Yeah, it's so good. And like, he kind of loves being his bodyguard. I want to also highlight like a page that was one of my favorite things, which is when Thor finds the kids and the woman who's overlooking them in the Children of Tomorrow is like, please don't touch them. Like, they're, oh, you're one of them. You're one of the humans.
Air pollution.
And she's like, hey, you really need to get out of here. But you know what? There are other biologicals like you. Maybe you can take them with you. Go. Go. Perhaps you will escape. Like, she's just,
She just loves some babies.
And if the city directory has updated properly, they are captured human types. They are over in that direction. What? Oh, yes. Very exciting. Maybe you can take them with you while you leave.
Get out of here.
And she's just like, I really don't care that you're here. Just please get out of here.
You're polluting the baby air.
All right. Anything else?
No, I really love that. I'm glad you picked this. It was wonderful, honestly, to revisit an Ultimate story that I haven't engaged with in such a long time, and like, this is one of the stories I really enjoyed. Yeah, I love it so much.
Like I said, I'll probably continue at least up through the Hickman stuff. I might give the next. I forget who the next writer is for the rest of the arc. give that a shot. But
they start co-writing partway in, and then it becomes just him.
That makes sense. Because I am really interested in Ultimate Invasion, which is currently coming out now.
I'll tell you, I remember that nothing that happens in this line of the Ultimate story ever gets as bad as some of the previous Ultimates.
Oh yeah,
stuff.
Again, Ultimatum is there forever.
I gotta tell you, like, this is a wild time. If you ever decide to revisit it, like, the X-Men run from here until the end of the universe is really fascinating because it becomes super underground. A lot of it is about Kitty Pryde,
yes,
kind of finding her way back to the mutants and leading them, because she herself feels lost after losing Peter, because in this universe they dated for a long time. So it's really, really interesting. Yeah, I love it.
I remember Hickman was taken off of Ultimates because they wanted to move him to 616. I don't remember what book exactly he started writing afterwards, but they specifically wanted him to go to a more mainline book because they were liking what he was doing on Ultimates.
The book Hickman did after this book is The Avengers.
Oh, there you go then.
Which leads into Secret Wars, which is a culmination of this book and the previous book and his previous book, and like built up.
And one last little quick fun thing I'm going to do with Ben, because I know he has the lack of familiarity with the Ultimate Comics. Ben, would you like to hanker a guess at who Spider-Woman is?
Oh, interesting. He might not know this.
No clue.
She is Peter Parker's clone.
Yep.
Of course she is.
They did Clone Saga, and she is a clone of Peter Parker.
Is she called Jess?
She's called Jess, but I don't think it's Drew.
Okay. But she's Jess. That is the character. Okay, I'm the second show.
Why am I not surprised? I mean, honestly, I just saw a Spider-Woman, and I'm like, okay, cool, there's a Spider-Woman in the Ultimate universe, and I just ran with it.
A lot of people don't like the Clone Saga in the main Marvel continuity. I think when they did the Clone Saga in the Ultimate Universe, it's actually very compelling, and I'm genuinely impressed with the direction they decided to take, because for a long time, Peter Parker is dead, and you have this clone of Peter Parker who has memories of his family and friends, who now is dealing with the fact that, like, those people have lost Peter Parker, and they're still out in the world with Peter Parker's memories and things that are like, this is weird.
I'm a lady.
This is weird. And that's why they're so possessive of like Miles not being allowed to be Spider-Man. They don't know it's Miles, and they ultimately come around.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, so we're going to be doing this every other week. So the next time you see us it will be my turn. I know what it is, if you guys want me to say.
Yeah, go
sure.
For it.
Yeah.
I am going to keep the Hickman train going with S.H.I.E.L.D. Architects of Forever.
It's a good book.
By Jonathan Hickman, and the artist is Dustin Weaver. So
Dustin Weaver's so good. This might as well just be Hickman month.
I really I was really compelled to it when they were releasing the second volume, The Human Machine.
Yep. Which came out like a decade later.
Yeah.
So Brandon?
So it's S.H.I.E.L.D. Architects of Forever by Jonathan Hickman and Dustin Weaver.
When Leonardo da Vinci helps find S.H.I.E.L.D. back in the 1500s or whatever?
What?
Yeah. I really like Jonathan Hickman. I really like the concept of the story, and so I've been interested in checking it out. So I figured what better time than to keep the Hickman train going with S.H.I.E.L.D.
All aboard the Hickman train. Choo choo.
And because we are in a changed format and we need to put out more comic content due to the strikes right now, also look for our big going through a series rotation. If you've been with us for the long haul, guess what? We're going back to the beginning. It's back to Wasted Space, my friends. So in the near future, you're going to see us coming here and talking about the last two volumes so far of Wasted Space, volumes 4 and 5, because Ryan and I got the big old screw you omnibus.
So big.
You can probably, we probably don't know for sure, but the goal is to put that up before my turn in the rotation, right?
No. So the Wasted Spaces, so our rotational, like we've been doing it, our bi-weekly rotation,
this one
will now say, in theory, what will happen is that Brandon's episode will come out next, and then we're going to aim for every 3 weeks. So the week after Brandon's, you will get a release where we are talking about Wasted Space Volume 4. That is our goal. I'm not going to say we're going to be able to nail it all the time, but that is the goal, is to every 3 weeks rotate on our long form series, and every 2 weeks rotate on our individual picks.
So if I may just say to Ben, because I am going to be doing the same thing, I recommend rereading the first 3 volumes of Wasted Space.
Oh yeah,
that's
a
before we do volume 4.
Mm-hmm.
That's why. That's also like I'm giving you some time. If we need a little more time, then we'll take a little more time. But we are coming back with Wasted Space Volume 4, my friends. Whoop, whoop.
Woo-hoo.
That's the first episode of the Fake Nerd Book Club. Also look out for some Star Trek things. I'm gonna get that back rolling. So Star Trek Book Club coming back too. So
hell yeah.
A lot of book club, a lot of Basement Arcade, a lot of Basement Arcade pause menu, because we are going to end conversation. Those are the shows that are the main shows that are not impacted by the strike. We are putting many of our shows on hiatus due to be in solidarity with the strike. So check out our website for what those shows are going to be. Until then, you can definitely find us on our website at fakenerdpodcast.com. You can check out our TeePublic and our Patreon if you'd like to support us financially, where the Fake Nerd Book Club logo is there. By the way, thank you to Mike Patola for the Fake Nerd Book Club logo. That's a logo that he designed.
Pretty sweet logo.
Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at Fake Nerd Podcast. I'm at BT McClure on Instagram and Twitter. You can also find me writing for CBR.com, AtomicGeekdom.com, and KaijuRamenMedia.com. Ben, where can people find you?
Oh, you can find me on the internet at BenMagnet27, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Threads, and you can find me writing for Old School Gamer Magazine, Fusion Gaming Magazine, GoNintendo.com, and playing Mary Frankenstein in Dean Dark. New episodes coming out on Wednesdays until a few weeks from now, because our mid-season finale is coming up, and then we're going to be on a long hiatus.
Hell yeah. Yeah, you can find me stoked to read more comics and play more video games at Sparks Witty on Instagram and Twitter, SPARKZ Witty. Support the strikes, hot labor summer. Thank you to Jeremy Vellucci for our music.
Ryan Eliopoulos.
Hey, you can find me living and loving the Hickman train that we're on at DJ Tony Snark 616.
All right, guys, find us on all the podcatchers of choice. Like this video, subscribe to this channel. Until next time you see us, guys, stay fake nerds.